Hi guys, good morning. So let's talk today about government accounting, chapter 8, agriculture. We've been studying agriculture with accounting as well, with business accounting. So we do have as well um, how to treat agriculture activities in terms of government transactions. So agriculture means farming or the process of producing crops and livestock. In this chapter, we'll learn the accounting principles used for assets, liabilities, income, and expenses resulting from agricultural activities. So if we talk about agricultural activity, is the management by an entity of the biological transformation and harvest of biological assets for sale, including exchange or non-exchange transactions, or for conversion into agricultural produce or into additional biological assets. So from the word itself, management. So there is already a human intervention in terms of the produce and the transformation in terms of the agricultural um, assets. So we do have some examples of agricultural activities. We have raising livestock, forestry, annual or perennial cropping. So basically, there's really a human intervention, regardless if it talks about just human itself or a manual labor, or there is already a technology being applied. So there are, let's talk about the common features of agricultural activities. We have the capability to change. Living animals and plants are capable of biological transformation. So they have their what we call, if we do have our, just like humans, we evolved. So they evolved as well from like for example, for a cow. So if the newborn cow, we call it calf, so it will evolve, and definitely once it will mature, it can also reproduce. So that's their capability to change. And as well, the second one is management of change. Management facilitates biological transformation by enhancing or at least stabilizing conditions necessary for a process to take place. Such management distinguishes agricultural activities from other activities. So as we all know, there are already endangered species, not just in the Philippines, but across the world. That's why there is human intervention, there is management of those activities. Just like, for example, what we call that artificial insemination, that's AI, that's for carabao. They are being implemented in order to help reproduce, to procreate the carabao. And that's one thing that is present right now, which is not in the past. And with that activity, it helps the species to be retained and to still be present in the future, because we know there are already like for example, for this kind of species, for this kind of animal, it's already endangered. That's why we need to to intervene. The people need to intervene, especially for artificial insemination. So for example, harvesting from unmanaged resources such as harvesting from unmanaged resources, not agriculture activities. So if we talk about management of um, management of biological assets, it really means that we are aiming for procreation. We are aiming that this kind of species, either a plant or an animal, when we intervene, we are aiming or we are promoting, or the goal for that one is to procreate or to reproduce, not to extinguish those animals or those plants. Measurement of change, we have the change in quality or quantity brought about by biological transformation or harvest measured and monitored as a routine management function. So in relation to management of change, we also have measurement of change. So basically, there is monitoring, just like us. We are monitoring our babies. We are monitoring how they are performing. Just like that, because they are also a living species, and we're helping them to procreate. That's why we also need to monitor them. Biological transformation comprises the following processes. The qualitative or quantitative changes in the biological asset. First, asset changes through growth, procreation, and degeneration. If we talk about growth, is an increase in quantity or improvement, quality of an animal or plant, an increase in quantity or improvement. So just like for example, from a little plant, like for example, a mango plant. So we plant that little mango plant in some area in our farm lot. So we will monitor that one up until a couple of years ago. It will grow and definitely provide us a fruit already. Procreation is the creation of additional living animals or plants. So procreation, so just like for example, since we do already implemented this artificial insemination for carabao, so we are expecting that carabao will procreate, and we are expecting an offspring. And the generations decrease in the quantity, deterioration, the quality of an animal or plant. So that's one thing, that's part as well. But this is the unfortunate event. This is a negative result for human intervention. So we are not promoting that one, the degeneration. Next is production of agricultural produce. Biological asset is a living animal or plant. So that's the asset, because that's where we are getting the offspring. Well, if we talk about agricultural produce, is the harvested product of the entity's biological assets. Harvest is the detachment of produce from biological asset, or the cessation of a biological assets process. So from the words of harvest, so it will be detached, or it will be removed from the asset or from the biological asset. So we do have some examples here. So you take time and try to read this one, but definitely I know that by now you're already aware of what is our biological asset, what's our agricultural produce, and products that are a result of processing after harvest. Like for example, just have an example. Trees in a plantation of forest. So that's our biological asset. Agricultural produce is a felled trees, and products that are result, we have the logs or lumber. So that's an example of biological assets, its agricultural produce, and the products after processing. Okay, so let's move to page 207. Actually, my photocopy is not that clear here, but I'll try to check on those statements. So, recognition, biological asset or agricultural produce is recognized when it meets the asset recognition criteria, including the reliable measurement of its fair value or cost. So, just like any other assets, we will be recognizing biological asset or agricultural produce. First is if we have the authority, or if we have the right, if we have the right of claim for that biological asset or agricultural produce. And another one is it can be measured reliably via fair value or its cost. Biological assets are initially and subsequently measured at fair value less cost to sell. The gain or loss arising from initial measurement and subsequent changes in fair value less cost to sell are recognized in surplus or deficit. So we will also be just like for gain or loss. So if there are, in terms of the subsequent measurement, if there are changes, it will be recognized in surplus or deficit. Biological assets whose fair value cannot be reliably determined on initial recognition are initially measured at cost. So if there is no fair value, we will recognize the biological asset at cost and subsequently measured at cost less accumulated depreciation and accumulated impairment losses. So that's how we are going to recognize biological asset if fair value is not, if the fair value cannot be reliably estimated. Next, agriculture produced, so is initially measured at fair value less cost to sell at the point of harvest. So like siya, the biological asset, well, it should be measured initially by fair value less cost to sell. But if the fair value is not determined, or the fair value cannot be determined at that point, we'll be using costs. And subsequent measurement is cost less accumulated depreciation and less accumulated impairment losses. But if we talk about agricultural produce, we will be recognizing or we'll be measuring it fair value less cost to sell. Again, take note, at the point of harvest. So it should be at the point of harvest. This will be the deemed cost when subsequently measuring the agricultural produce using the measurement basis for inventories or other bases. The gain arising from the initial measurement is also recognized in surplus or deficit. So same treatment for biological asset and agricultural produce. If there is a gain or loss from subsequent measurement, it will be recognized in surplus or deficit. Cost to sell are incremental costs directly attributable to the disposal of an asset, excluding finance costs and income taxes, and you're totally aware of what we call cost to sell. Alright, determination of fair value. So determination of fair value, so we do have the quoted price in an active market. So again, if we talk about fair value, I keep on telling you this one, guys. It's an arm's length transaction wherein the buyer is willing to purchase and the seller is willing to sell. That's why in this illustration, it was referred as a quoted price in an active market, because if there is a buyer and a seller, we can call it as an active market. If the both if one part is missing, so we cannot say that as an active market. So after the quoted price in active market, we will less the transport cost, definitely, upon transporting the items or whatsoever agricultural produce or biological asset for it to be available for sale. So the difference would be fair value. So if we talk about active market, is a market in which all of the following condition exists. So the items traded in the market are homogeneous. Willing buyers and sellers can normally be found anytime. So again, the two parties are available and prices are available to the public. So again, items traded in market are homogeneous. So you know what a homogeneous is. If there are more than one active markets, the entity shall make the price in the market expected to be, shall use the price in the market expected to be used. So if there is no active market, the entity shall estimate the market price based on the following. So again, if not ko active market, the entity will use the price in the market expected to be used. However, if there is no active market, so here are the following bases for market price. The most recent market price, the most recent market transaction price, provided that there is no significant change in economic circumstances between the date of the transaction and the reporting date. So it's very important, the timing and relevance. Another, market prices for similar assets with adjustment to referred differences. So sector benchmarks such as the value of an orchard express per export tray, bushel or hectare, and the value of, I cannot read that one, express per kilogram of meat. So from the word itself, benchmark, so I keep on telling you this one, benchmark, this is, it is a process wherein we are trying to gather information, what are the current prices across the industry. It's also applicable for the human resource personnel. They are doing benchmarking in order for them to know what is the competitive salary package that they can offer, that is present within the industry, so that they can offer a competitive prices for their employees. So that's why we do have these sector benchmarks. In short, for us to know what's the trend price within the industry. Present value expected net cash flows from the actual discounted, from the amount discounted, I mean, at the current market determined rate, circumstances where market determined prices or value are not available for biological assets in its present condition. So, definitely we will be computing its present value. And we have also here the following factors or the following elements. Contract prices are irrelevant when determining the fair value. You have to take note of that. Transport costs refer to all costs necessary in getting the asset to the market for sale, as mentioned, for it to be available for sale. The determination of fair value may be facilitated by grouping biological assets or agricultural produce according to significant attributes or by age or by quality. Yes, that's very useful, or that's very prevailing right now. If you have experienced that one, wherein your father or your mother will be selling your carabaos or your cows. So we have to determine the age or also the quality. Well, the quality, we should be looking how's the structure, the physical structure, the physical attributes of the carabao or the cow. So that's the quality. In terms of age, we should be, your father or your mother know already by that, so that if the canvasser should know, and the buyer should provide us the appropriate quotation. Cost may sometimes approximate fair value, particularly when little biological transformation has taken place since initial cost occurrence. So somehow, as mentioned, if there's a little changes, again, little biological transformation since initial cost incurrence, so most likely cost may sometimes approximate the fair value. So they are at par. So the cost will at par with the fair value. Biological assets attached to land, that is trees and plantation forests, may not have a separate market, but an active market may exist for combined assets. Yes. So, if you're going to be purchasing a mango plantation, you'll definitely include, the seller will include in the purchase price the cost of the land. So we cannot sell just those trees only, and the ownership of the land will retain to the seller. So it's I haven't encountered that kind of transaction. Well, in case if there is, but I'm not that aware of. But if we talk about mango plantation, it should be combined, the price of the mango plantation and also the price of the land. In such case, the fair value of the raw land and land improvements may be deducted from the fair value of the combined assets to arrive at the fair value of the biological assets. So there should be, but in terms of that, again, it cannot be sold separately. But we can still determine the value of the land so that we can deduct it from the total purchase price, and the remaining price will be allocated to biological asset. A biological asset that is previously measured at fair value less cost to sell shall be measured at fair value less cost to sell until it is disposed. Okay? Diba? Again, the biological asset should be measured fair value less cost to sell. If the fair value is not available, we will use cost. So again, if it is measured previously, so we have to be consistent. Fair value less cost to sell, we will use the fair value less cost to sell measurement until its disposal. Alright, so let's talk about the disclosures. What are the disclosures that we need to do for this one? The following are the peculiar disclosures related to agriculture: the aggregate gain or loss on initial recognition of biological assets and agriculture produce, and from the change in the fair value less cost to sell of biological assets. Consumable and bearer biological assets and biological asset held for sale, and held for distribution at no charge or for nominal charge. So we do have consumable biological assets and bearer biological assets. So are those that are to be harvested as agricultural produce or to be sold are distributed as biological asset. So consumable man. So example, livestock intended for production of meat. So basically, they will perish, or they will extinguish. They will cease their existence because they have to be consumed. Better biological assets are those that are self-generated, are used repeatedly for more than 1 year. Dairy cattle help for production of milk, fruit, cheese, and cheese. So just like unlike for dairy cattle, they will still continue to exist because they'll just be producing milk. For chicken, they'll be producing eggs. But unlike for those consumable biological assets, they have to be consumed. Their existence, they cease to exist. Mature and immature biological assets. Mature biological assets are those that have attained harvestable specifications and are able to sustain regular harvests. So for consumable biological assets, and that is harvestable, and for sustain regular harvest, that's for better biological assets because they need to continue. They need to continue in a foreseeable future of time to produce additional plants or to produce additional offspring for animals. The amount of change in fair value less cost to sell due to physical changes and due to price changes. So those are the things that you have to take note as part of the disclosure in terms of agricultural transactions for accounting. So let's have our illustration. Journal entries, and entity A purchases 5 breeding stacks at 3,000, equal to the fair value less cost to sale at the acquisition date. So journal entry, so we can put a debit breeding stocks because we purchased, that's already an asset, or we can put chicken or cow or carabao. 15,000. Cash in bank, local currency, current account, 15,000. Then 10 breeding stocks are born. So let's talk about na lang, this one is a chicken. Fair value less cost to sell and date of birth is 2,000 each. The journal entry is as follows. So 10 man kuno ka chicken, so breeding stocks. 10 times 2,000, that's 20,000. So breeding stocks, 20,000. So there's already again initial recognition of biological assets because it's already produced. So it's